you're a survivor of violence and are ready to get control of your life again, you're in the right place at the right time. This is the Survivors to Thrivers podcast with your host, Cranford Blackman. Hello, and welcome back to the LabCAF Survivors to Thrivers podcast. I'm Cranford Blackman, your host and the creator of the LabCAF Self-Protection System. Now, as I told you in our introductory podcast, which if you haven't listened to, please do go listen to them. I want to offer useful knowledge that you can start using to make your life better the day that you hear it. But I also want to bring you a few other things like interviews and some reviews on products and books that I think will be useful to you. So today, I am really excited to be bringing you my very first book review. Now, for full transparency, which I'm sure you'll figure out shortly anyway, I have no idea how to do a real book review. So please forgive me if I'm goofing this up. So I decided what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this book, why I really like it, and why I think you would benefit by reading it as well. How will that work for everybody? Okay, I don't hear any complaints yet, so I'm going to keep going. Now, by the way, I'm only going to offer book reviews on something that I have read and that I truly believe you will benefit from reading as well. If you've been with me since the early days of LabCAF, back before there was ever a podcast, you know that my program started out as a program that was just for women. And only now, as I'm creating online content rather than just classroom content, have I actually started reaching out to the men as well. So pay attention, fellas. So I came across this book back when I was looking for things by women to help inspire strength, courage, and determination in other women. But the lessons to be learned in this woman's story are certainly not just for the ladies. And for any of you guys listening, I hope you don't stop listening because this is a book about a woman's challenges, losses, and victories. Because if you do, you are really missing out on some incredible lessons. It doesn't matter how big or tough you are or how big or tough you want to be. There are lessons here for the men too. Now, you guys know I'm a former soldier, police officer, and an air marshal. And I tell you this, I really wish that every military and law enforcement professional had the determination you're going to see in this story when you read it. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this story, you'll find a great example of what is possible. Okay, no more waiting. The book I want to tell you about is titled My Fight, Your Fight by Ronda Rousey. Now, for those of you who don't know her, Ronda Rousey is a fighter, and I mean that literally. She is an Olympic medalist in judo and a former UFC champion. Now, I don't want you to stop listening because you think, oh, she's a trained super fighter. There's no way I can relate to whatever her story is because I'm not a trained professional fighter. Well, hold on there, little doggies. Because the incredible fights, the victories, and the horrible losses you'll be reading about are not all about sports and professional fighting. In this book, Ronda is sharing the many, many battles she faced as a child, as a young girl, a young woman chasing dreams and desperately wanting a real, honest, and loving relationship. But it also follows her into her adult and professional life. And believe me when I tell you, you will definitely be able to relate with many parts of this incredible lady's life and her struggles. Struggles that started on the very day of her birth when she died. You heard that right. Ronda Rousey started fighting on the day she was born for her very life. You see, when she was born with her umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. So when she came out, she was not breathing and her heart stopped. And lucky for her and her family, and now for all of us, the doctors were able to get her resuscitated. But they were worried that she may have some challenges because of the stoppage of oxygen there for a little bit. There's a line in here that she says that I just really like, and of course she couldn't have prepared before she was born, right? But for everything after that, listen to what she says. She says, "You never know if you'll have to be ready sooner than you expected." Well, certainly she needed to be ready very soon, right? So it's an important thing to keep in mind, especially when you're starting to consider, what do I want to do for my future? Do I want to put off this school, this class, this lesson? So you never know if you'll have to be ready sooner than you expected. Get ready as soon as you can for anything. I think I could probably do an entire talk on just the truth of that statement, that you never know if you'll have to be ready sooner than you expected. All right, so let's move on. Now, surely enough, she did have some challenges because of the lack of oxygen. For example, she was unable to speak intelligibly even at the age of 3. And there's a terrific story in here I just love about this because it's got a great lesson. When she was 3, there was a toy that she wanted, but nobody could understand what the heck she was saying. But she was certain that she wanted it, so Mom and Dad start taking her to toy stores. Nobody can figure out what she wants. But eventually, as you might guess, she gets to a store and a guy is listening to her and watching what she's doing, and he figures out what it is. He goes, picks one up, brings it back to her, and of course she is elated. Her parents are amazed, her sisters are amazed, and Ronda Rousey is now extremely happy. Even in this little story, there's a huge lesson to get. Like I say, you're going to get lessons all through this book, and Ronda doesn't point them out and go, here's your lesson, learn this. It's left open for us to look and go, wow, I get that. I understand that. But I like to put the lessons to words because it helps me remember it. But anyway, here's the lesson that I got from this little story about her not being able to speak intelligibly, but she got what she wanted nonetheless. And here's the lesson. When you're really, really determined and you keep on moving forward no matter what, you're going to make it. And if for some reason you can't make it, even though you are being fully determined and moving forward, then someone or something will show up in your life and they will have or will be the exact thing that you need to overcome that challenge. There's always a way, even if you can't see it in the present. But you can only find that way if you're determined and keep moving forward. I really, really believe that. And I'll tell you, if I stopped reading after just that chapter, that one lesson alone would have been worth the cost of the book for me. But guess what? There are incredible lessons in chapter after chapter throughout this book. So much to learn here. Now, not long after that little story that happened with her and the toy, her family suffered a terrible tragedy, and then an even worse loss shortly after that. And as happens for most of us, the challenges just kept on coming, just like happens in your life and has happened in mine. So how did she deal with all this poo, because I'm keeping the language clean, right? How did she deal with all this poo that happened in her life? She mentions a belief that she sort of inherited from her great-grandmother. And it's a belief that I really connect with as well. Rhonda understands from her great-grandmother that no matter what, we can't see the big picture of our life. That means that we don't know or understand the whys of things that happen in our lives, or to what greatness they will lead us to. That's right, what greatness they will lead us to. You see, she's thankful for everything in her life, even the terrible things, the awful things, the painful things. Her take on it is that all of her successes and all of her greatest joys are somehow a result of the worst things that have happened to her. Those terrible things moved her in a direction where she found all the incredible, joyful things, all the incredible positive lessons, and all the incredible relationships. Having a belief like that might be the one thing that can get us out of a terribly dark place. It's more about just surviving. The goal is to get back into the light of life and joy in spite of whatever has happened to you or wherever you have been or whatever tragedies you've dealt with. So I want you to think about all the incredibly inspiring stories you've heard. Whether it's a story from that guy you see at work or from Miss Oprah Winfrey. No one is inspired by their stories of happy days where everything went right and there were no challenges. What does inspire us, whether it's from Miss Oprah Winfrey or that guy that you see at work, is their stories of pain, their stories of loss, and their determination to climb out of the darkness of guilt, shame, or loss just to get back. Their fight, their struggle, and everything they went through and everything they did. Those are the stories that help the rest of us have hope, to help the rest of us keep moving forward, because we saw that someone else could do it. We had belief in what they did. It gives us faith that it can happen for us too. Because here's the truth of it. If anybody has ever survived something, then we can probably survive it too, right? Now, like I said a few minutes ago, I agree with Rhonda's great-grandma. You don't know what good can come from tragedy. And you know what? You never will if you choose to sit and soak in your misery. You see, when you get determined to move back into the light, that is when the magic of the universe or the miracles of God get going. But you can't see that good until it has already happened. I know that most of you know who Steve Jobs is. And in 2005, he did the commencement speech at Stanford University. And he kind of went over this. He brought this up and mentioned it in his talk. So here's what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, okay? He said, "You can only connect the dots of your life's experiences by looking backwards. You can't see where what happens today will lead you in the future." That's amazing, right? Because surely enough, there is a life path that we move along. We can't see it in front of us, but we can look behind us and see where it was. Look back on your own life and think of some of the things, the painful things, that changed the trajectory of your life. And then as you're thinking back, move forward a little bit in your memory to the things that would not have happened except for that tragedy or challenge. What happened that moved you to the place where you met your soulmate? What terrible thing led you to the job that you loved? There's always some obstacle. There's something in the road that changes our direction. And had it not been for that, there's some incredible things, a lot of incredible things in our life that we would have never seen, people we would have never met, and experiences we would have never had. So like Steve Jobs said, and just like Ronda Rousey's great-grandma said, we can't know what the plan is. We can only see it as we look backwards in our life. So do that. Spend a little bit of time looking back on your life and find a little bit of gratitude for the poo that you've lived through, that has happened in your life, that has allowed you to find some incredible things. It's tough to be thankful for painful stuff, but it helps a little bit when we can see that it led us to some of the best things in our life. Okay, let me move on. Now, there's two things that you're going to keep seeing in Rhonda's story. One is determination, which we all need, right? And two is real life. Now, I love that she doesn't hide her humanity, her femininity, her fear, or her failings. It is that very vulnerability that makes her believable, and it's inspiring to the rest of us. It's tough for me when I listen to somebody's story if their life is so different than mine that I can't connect with them. But this young lady, she lets it all hang out. She tells us the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it really allows me to connect with her story. Even though I don't follow her life path, and you probably don't share her life path either, or at least not her career path. But I'm certain that as you read her story, just as I have, that you will see yourself in her story over and over, allowing you to connect with her and see what she's done and how things could be in your life too. Now, the stuff that I've talked about so far barely gets to page 45 out of a 300-page book. And in those 300 pages, you're going to see challenge in her life after challenge, the pain, the tragedy, the heartbreak. But you're also going to see determination, as I mentioned before, and the will to keep fighting. You're going to see love, loyalty, forgiveness, and incredible growth in this beautiful young woman. There are stories about challenges with her family. Anybody ever had challenges with their family? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It can be tough. And if you've never heard the phrase tough love before, wait till you meet Rhonda's incredible mom in this story. Rhonda also shares stories of the people who believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. Stories of romantic loyalty and betrayal. Okay, here's something I want you to do when you read her book, and I do want you to read it. I want you to keep a pen and a notebook and a highlighter handy. I want you to write down the lessons that jump out at you. Connect with the places where your pain is similar to hers. Think about what she did to overcome where she had setbacks caused by others and by herself. Now, write it in the notebook. Highlight things, underline things. I know some of you are probably cringing thinking about writing in books, but guess what? I'm the kind of guy that if I read a book, I've got a pen in my hand, and every book I have practically has notes in it, underlined, stuff in the margins, because I just come up with stuff I want to remember, stuff that makes sense to me. And if I write it down, I'll remember it so much easier. So I want you to do that too. If you don't want to write in your book, because you're one of those people that keeps your books pristine, keep that notebook handy, okay? Then I want you to think about your own situations. Try to see them with determination and with hope. You might suddenly realize that there is an answer or a helper that you just couldn't see before when you didn't look at your life with determination and with that hope, especially through the focus or through the lens of the life of somebody who dealt with challenges like Ronda Rousey has. And then, after you read this incredible story, I would love it if you would consider connecting with the author and let her know how what she wrote helped you to overcome the challenges of your life and the pains of your past. It's so terrific for an author or an instructor to hear how what you've done has helped somebody. And she really has opened her life up. You know, it's not just all the prettiness and the fun and the excitement of being a professional fighter. She has her runaway moments, her fear moments, her pain moments, stuff that's embarrassing. And yet she's willing to share that with all of us so that we can grow as well. I absolutely love this book. There are lessons for everyone. So don't think this book is just for women, like I said before. And by the way, Rhonda's vocabulary is as colorful as any soldier in a barroom I've ever known. So don't be surprised by her language, but don't let yourself get offended by the language to the point that you're not listening to her story and learning from her lessons. She's an incredible woman who is bearing her soul to help others. Honor what she has done in writing this story of her life. Now, I've only told you about the first couple of chapters and kind of generalized about the rest of the story and the lessons. But the whole point is for me to get you interested in a book that I want you to read because I think you will benefit from it. Plus, I could not tell her story as well as she could. Her words, her emotion, her feelings come through in the story. So do read it. Now, something else to know is that after the writing of this book, Rhonda suffered a devastating blow to her professional fighting career. And for her, a person who takes every loss to heart like you wouldn't believe, and you're going to see that a whole lot in that story, I'm sad for her. But on the other hand, and she'd probably beat me up for this if she doesn't listen to all of this, I'm glad that it happened. And no, I'm not being mean or cruel. What I am being is hopeful. I'm hopeful that after such a devastating and public loss, she will rise up yet again, but not as a professional fighter this time. I want her to rise up as a motivational speaker for women. I can't imagine the number of girls and young women who she could inspire and motivate with her story. Those girls, those women being able to see that a woman can be emotional, she can be feminine, she can be soft, without giving up being strong and powerful, that's incredible. To see that no matter how many times you fail, no matter how many wrong choices you've made in the past, no matter what pains and tragedies you've endured, you can keep moving forward and growing and healing. With Ronda Rousey's story, all of those girls and women can realize that the power to persevere, to fight, and even to forgive is already within them. And that might not be about forgiving others for everybody. That might be about learning to forgive yourself. And that would be an incredible lesson for all those girls to hear from such a strong woman as Ronda Rousey. In the very beginning of the book, as most authors do, Ronda starts with a dedication, and here's what it is. For Mom and Dad, I hope you're proud of me. Pretty simple, right? But something every one of us has thought in our own minds about our own family. Well, if you've read the website any and kind of read my background, you know that I'm a dad and a granddad. And after reading her story, I know I'm proud of her. So I'm pretty certain her mom and dad are too. Now, of course, her dad isn't able to give her a proud daddy hug because he's passed away a long time ago. So if I ever met her, I would love to give her a proud daddy hug for her dad and for her. Now, something else that I want you guys to know is at the time of this recording, I'm not selling her books. I'm not an affiliate of anyone who is either. What I'm trying to say here is that I have no reason to want you to buy and read this book other than I really, really, really believe it will inspire you to keep fighting for the things that you want and the things that you believe in, to keep fighting to come out of the dark, especially those of you who are violence survivors, because you can do it. And if you have already read this book, let me know what you learned and how you connected with her story. Just let me know that by leaving it in the comments below if you're listening to the YouTube version, or if you're listening to it on the podcast, send me an email since I don't have that one part set up yet. Anyway, send me an email at cranford@labcaf.com. I've really enjoyed sharing this air quotes book review. And I do air quotes because, like I said, I don't know how to book review. I just want to tell you about this book that I liked and why I liked it. But I've also got several other books that I want to tell you about in the future. So this is the first, but it won't be the last. And I'm betting that all of you have a book or two that has inspired you, or maybe even changed the course of your life. So let me know about those books. Let me know what they are and how they affected you. I'd like to read them too. It might be something that can help the rest of the LabCaf tribe. And if it looks like something that I believe would work, then I'll do a review on it. And I will certainly give you a shout out as part of that review since you're the one who shared it with me. So until next time, as we keep moving from survivors to thrivers, this is Cranford Blackman reminding you to stay safe and stay strong. To make sure you never miss an episode of Survivors to Thrivers podcast, subscribe at labcaf.com.